Hello, I'm Eric Gurr, and I'm here to help you become a better IT manager, director, and maybe even CIO. I've managed IT people from desktop to application developers in C#.NET, JavaScript, SQL developers. I've been a director of IT, and I've consulted with some companies as large as $1 billion in revenue a year as a CIO consultant. Over the last 25 years, I've learned a lot about managing IT people. And most of what I've learned is through mistakes I've made. And the biggest part of this course may be in helping you to avoid those mistakes. The first thing we need to ask is, why would you ever want to be an IT manager? Well, the cold, hard, ugly truth is being a manager pays better than being a programmer or a systems engineer. And that's because you take on more stress and more responsibility, and we'll help you manage that as well. But also, being a manager offers your career flexibility. And not just within the company you're in. If you have to change jobs, an IT manager is a more valuable asset. So there are a lot of courses on IT management, or on management in particular, and not a lot on IT management. And that's because a lot of colleges, big colleges, I've worked with some of these people that went to Ivy League colleges. They're taught that management is management. That's not true at all. In fact, there's a huge difference between managing people that work at a warehouse or a fast food restaurant and managing the highly motivated, highly intelligent people that become programmers, systems engineers, and other jobs in computer business. And one of the big reasons of this is it's harder to get there. It's harder to be a programmer than it is to do a non-skilled job. And that means it's harder to hire these people, and so you don't want to lose them if you can avoid it. In the United States of America, Glassdoor.com shows that it takes about 35 days to hire a computer programmer. A lot of warehouse workers or semi-skilled workers even can be hired within a day or two. So one of the things we're going to do is help you retain these people, how to create a more productive and calm environment. It doesn't matter if you're on-site or remote. The truth about remote work is, for a manager or an IT director, there's very little difference in running it remotely or on site. There's some things we can go over, some pitfalls I've fallen into and that you can hopefully learn from. But in the overall picture, it's not quite as difficult managing remotely as it is perhaps programming remotely or trying to solve problems remotely. So let's get into it, and we're going to really quickly get into what I think is the most important part of being an IT manager for developers and other very skilled people. That's it right there. Don't let your environment get contentious. Really good programmers are really intelligent. I've yet to see a stupid programmer. And really intelligent people who've worked hard and had some success can tend to have an ego, and they've earned that maybe sometimes. But even in small groups of just 3 or 4 people, you can have, and I've had this before, 2 guys that'll just butt heads. And when that happens and you get this contentiousness in your environment, it poisons the whole team. And it's not just this thing we all have to do called work that it makes that bad. It makes everything bad. A contentious environment makes your team less efficient, less productive. And it's something that will then spread and sometimes affect the entire organization rapidly. So how do you avoid that? The first place to start and the first person to start with is that person in the mirror. And there could be 50 programmers right now watching this that have worked for me over the years and says, look at Gurr here trying to tell us to be nice to each other. And when I was in my 30s, if things went wrong, I would get harried and start yelling at people a little bit. And, hey, you got to do this. And it didn't work. And it wasn't going to. The thing to do, and the way you develop this skill, is not just when things are going well. It's when things are going poorly or there's a big problem. And this is one of the things I was taught by a very accomplished CEO who had taken me on as a consultant for his company. It was a $1 billion company that had been in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He was retired, and they hired him out of retirement to get this thing turned around. He did it, which doesn't happen near as often as you think, but he did it. And I was working with him They didn't really have a CIO. They had a high-level director of IT working for the CFO. None of it worked very well. And he called me in the first day. I saw something that was just, I thought, a terrible idea. And in the meeting, I was like, you can't do this. Well, you got to do this. And the CEO afterwards said, well, that was really good. You got to the point. We got it resolved quickly, but don't let this become like this, contentious. And after that, I really took that to heart, and you should too. So when it hits the fan and something's going wrong, that's where you sharpen that skill. You just have to be calm and say, okay, what's your side? What's your side? Why is this like this? And try to work it through. And you have to, at that point, kind of stroke some ego and say, well, guys, you're both really smart and you're leaders of the team here. Clearly you can work together on this. And you just slowly start to change that culture a little bit so that when things go south, it doesn't spread. That will help you more than just about any other thing you can do when you're early on in your department or early in your career or just taking over a new department. Try to measure that. Try to measure how those folks work with each other and how well they can handle conflict on their own. And if it's as soon as you start, you notice within a couple weeks there's contention in there, you have to start right away calming that down. Your team will have more respect for you, and you'll eventually get it where it's just natural for them when there's a problem to kind of work through things and get it resolved quickly. Everybody's happier from the top of the company to the bottom because you're more efficient, more productive, and the company's going to make more money. So job number one, avoid contention.